welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Back again. No Ali tonight, but I have got George and Fergal with me. Boys, how you doing? Good bank holiday?
Very well.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, get used to
Nice
these.
weather.
I know, it feels like we're due some as well. I definitely haven't gone on about that in the last few podcasts, but yeah, fortunes are turning, hopefully. Yeah, I can get used to it. We've got 3 bank holidays in a month, so can't complain. Can't complain at all. We're here recording on a Monday night. Should add that the Forest Southampton game is currently ongoing, so when we come to the relegation stuff in a bit, and if I keep looking over my shoulder like that, that's why I get some of the tally there. But yeah, we won't obviously be privy to the result of that one just yet. But nevertheless, a lot of action over the weekend, including today. 3 games on a bank holiday Monday, and good games as well so far. So yeah, lots to talk about. I think there's, well, I was going to say there's only one place to start, but I'm perhaps a little bit biased when I say that. But the title race is still alive, if not in name only. Arsenal beat Newcastle 2-0 at St James's Park. Obviously very pleased about that result. Laid to rest a few demons from last season, hopefully, in some people's eyes. And it was an important result, I thought, not just because we needed to win to keep the dream alive, but I think in terms of actual narrative as well. I think a lot of people thought going into this that we would go there and potentially fairly thought we might get turned over, given our recent form, given Newcastle are very strong at home and they've been on a pretty good run themselves. So I think it was an important one for us to win, not least because actually I think had they beaten us, heavily like they did last season, I mean that was a 2-0 battering, and had it sort of been a similar thing, I actually think there would have been kind of danger of this. Could Newcastle be the nearest challengers next season, because they're looking like they're going to. Certainly, had they won yesterday, I think that would have been Champions League football secured. I still think they'll get it. I think they're in a good position. We'll come to that in a little bit, but I think there potentially would have been this idea that Newcastle could be the next closest to Man City with a big transfer window. Obviously, we know the ownership situation there allows them to spend heavily, and not least if they're in the Champions League. I think there's the potential for that project certainly to take a leap next season. And I think it would have, I think undermined what we've done this season, which has been a very good season. We're tracking potentially 90 points if we can win the last 3 games. I thought it was an important one to win. It combined that with obviously the Chelsea result, which those 2 results have happened since we last recorded, so I'm in a slightly better place than I was when we were doing this last week. But it's been an important couple of results, I think, just to keep it alive, just to actually reassert that, look, we've had a wobble, but it's been a good season. We've played some good stuff. And tricky game that yesterday. I mean, look, there's fine margin in football. I think Newcastle will look at it and think they had some good chances and definitely could have scored on multiple occasions. So could we. I think we actually, funnily enough, scored 2 goals from 2 of our lesser threatening situations because we missed some big chances on the day. But it was good. It was a good game. I thought both teams actually brought a lot to it. It wasn't a one-sided affair. But obviously delighted with the result. And keeps it going for at least another few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Newcastle, I think that they won't be. This isn't what's going to define the Champions League race. Losing to Arsenal, they played well, and I think they took the game to you. And I think an early goal maybe changes things a little bit. For them, I don't feel like they're going to be too disheartened about it. For Arsenal, it did feel like a must win. Like you said, the narrative probably would have shifted had this even been a draw. So I'm happy because I like drama. I like title, a tight title race.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
like a neutral perspective.
100%.
I think if we lose that yesterday or draw it yesterday, you've got Man City who obviously won again at the weekend, beat Leeds, and then they've got this obviously Champions League tie against Real Madrid, which we might come to in a bit, but it would allow them to essentially play that game and rotate in between, sort of pick a team for the Champions League.
Yeah.
And, the league be secondary to that. And they're still in a good position with the league. They would have to drop points in a couple of games, but I don't think what we've done is no complacency can creep in with their team selection. Certainly not next weekend. Everton have obviously had a good result this evening, and they'll be feeling better about themselves after their last 2 results going into that one. So I think we've kept them honest, and I think from a neutral perspective, whatever you think of the two clubs involved in it, you want to see a more interesting title race than Man City winning it, with a few weeks to spare. So it was an important result. I think it's one for me. It's a little bit tinged with regret, I think, and it goes back to even the Chelsea game as well, where we changed the team up. We changed from what we've been playing. Jorginho came into midfield, obviously a player you guys are familiar with, and then Kivior came in for holding, which I think whoever it was, someone had to come in that position. I think that it had become untenable for, I'm not going to relitigate it all. I've made my feelings perfectly clear on the matter, but something had to change there, and we've then gone on and won 2 games. And look, you might argue that Chelsea weren't very good, and Newcastle became an easier game because it's sort of the pressure of being in front is more than, okay, well, we actually have nothing to lose here, we've got to just chase Man City. Who knows how it would have gone had we gone there a few points in front rather than a few points behind. But if you just take the results on face value, to me it feels disappointing that we essentially waited, 3. I would say the Liverpool second half, they've been on a good run, Liverpool, whatever. I can understand why he left the team the same for one more game. But it felt like that Southampton, the West Ham one even, before Southampton, was where we played poorly, gave up a 2-0 lead. That was where he had to change it. And then the next 2 games after that, Man City are very good. That might have just happened anyway. But it was disappointing to me that we've essentially seen him then change the team, and it's worked. And it might have just come a couple of games too late.
Yeah.
But it's all hindsight, I suppose. It's difficult to say what would have happened had he done it earlier. But there's always regret with these things, I think.
Is it nice to get the win over Newcastle in a similar sort of stage to last season, whenever it was sort of the game that put you out of the top 4 race? Yeah.
It finished us. I mean, it came a couple of weeks later. It literally was the second to last game last year. That was the thing with it. Is when you compare this season to last season, it felt like the knockout blow last season came so late in the season we just couldn't react. Whereas at least on this occasion, albeit it's out of our hands, but it's happened kind of half a dozen games before the end. So there is that little period, it felt terminal, I have to be honest, that the Man City game, they go in front, we know the run they've been on and what they're like. But we just have to do what we can do, put the pressure on them, and what happens, but we've got time to rectify it. So on this occasion, with Newcastle, it's a similar sort of thing. Had we lost yesterday, it would have been curtains, absolutely. So it is satisfying to go there and get a win, not least because actually they're a better team than they were last year. They were on a good run last year, but they're third this year, and they're deservedly third.
It's mental that players like Jacob Murphy are still getting a game, and I think that speaks to how good of a coach Eddie Howe is. Because it's those sort of players that if you see an improvement in them, that I think that's where you see the sign of a coach, where you're like, oh wow, this guy's actually contributing. Same with Almiron as well, who's maybe been a bit quieter now, but had a brilliant season.
Yeah, I think what's interesting with Newcastle is he's done a very good job at keeping. You'd probably say these players, that group at this period in time, aren't going to get them where they need to get, right, in terms of the ambitions of the club. I think that is pretty indisputable. They need additions. I think the next stage of this coaching job is going to be really interesting for him, because it's sort of, how do you improve the level of the squad, both raise the ceiling and raise the floor, without kind of, not tarnishing, but undermining what you've already built there. Yeah, well, but I think when you look at it's not just the quantity either, it's kind of who you bring in, who you phase out. I think there's managing, personalities involved here, and I think actually a lot of what they've built has been built upon, that camaraderie and the bond between the fans and between the team. Yeah. And I think when you look at it, albeit you always want to see your club sign players and get to the next level, but it's how do you do that in a way that essentially doesn't undermine what got you to that position. I think it's going to be a really interesting season for them next year. If you assume that they go on and get into the top 4, how do they balance kind of that extra schedule, because it's a lot more games and they're harder games, obviously. And how do they take their squad up a notch? Because I think that, albeit that he's coached them very well and they've done very well this season, it does still feel like they're a little bit short in terms of a squad, I think. as you mentioned, players like Murphy, players like Longstaff, maybe even Willock for being particularly harsh, a couple of defenders. These are good players playing very well, but I don't think they're kind of elite level players that get you challenging domestically, get you challenging in Europe. I think they're players that long term, they're starters that become squad players, and I think that's the kind of where they would want to be taking the project. In certainly in the short term, but he's done a very good job this season.
In the relegation teams that I think could easily jump into Newcastle's team, Maddison and
I don't know if that's where I'd go. I don't know if that's where I'd go. I mean, obviously they took Dan Burn and Pope, but I think for them they need to look abroad again in terms of you look at their most successful signings.
They've got good value from abroad. Yeah,
I'd say Botman, Bruno, Guimaraes, and Isak, like all three of them.
Yeah, was abroad as well.
Yeah,
I know he's English, but he was at Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say all three of them are probably going to be the core of the team moving forward. I think that's the one positive in sort of counter or that will help them sort of retain the culture is they've got players that are playing now in this transition squad that will probably play in the squad for a number of years. Like Isaac's definitely quality enough. Bruno, I'd say the same, and probably Botman and Pope. You could probably build a team around them. Pope maybe arguable. Made some really good saves in the Arsenal game though, to be fair. But I think they've got to be really savvy in terms of who they bring in. Maddison might be a good player, but I also see Maddison as a bit of a diva sometimes. So
I think he's a bit. I said this to someone earlier because I watched the Leicester game today, and I don't think he's been particularly good for them probably the last 10 games. And I think he's someone that he's quite individualistic. And I know it'll sound silly to say this, but like some players, they look better in worse performing teams because you're essentially the best player in a pretty poor system. And I think he's the sort of player, if you put him into a better system, does he necessarily thrive? I think he likes being kind of the main man in a Leicester sort of calibre side. If you put him into a Newcastle where everything's been built upon getting more than the sum of its parts and everyone kind of, essentially it's a very good system. You wouldn't say there's one standout player in that Newcastle team. I think it's 11 very good performing ones in performing in the right system. I don't know. I might be being harsh there, but I've not been that impressed by him recently, and I think he has got a bit of an ego. Definitely, like he likes biting back on Twitter as well. I noticed he had another go tonight.
Brilliant.
About some comments he'd made after the game, but he seems to be the one that I think because of Leicester's position, he just seems to be the easiest one to bring up because he's put goals and assists on the board in a season where he's playing for a poor side, so it's just an easy one to throw out there. But I'm not so sure. I actually don't know if I know they've been interested, but I don't know if they'll go that way. It'd be interesting to see. But that is the thing for them. How do you take this to the next level? Personally, I hope they make an absolute mess of it because we're in competition with them. But it's going to be a big summer for them, no doubt. It'd be interesting to see if they go on and go a bit bigger because they've not gone huge in their windows. They've kind of picked. I think in the two windows, it's been one big signing in each one. Obviously, you had Geroge last season, Isaac in the summer, and then, albeit it's not been great so far, but Anthony Gordon 50 million in January. So they've kind of limited themselves a little bit. But it'd be interesting to see if they go a bit bigger and whether it becomes more about signing big names. I think that's the temptation they've resisted. But if a Neymar is on the market,
with PSG, look like they might be hemorrhaging a few big stars this summer. Like, there's not too many landing spots for them. And so
Newcastle is one you'd look at though. I think
I saw links about Verratti as well today. But yeah, so
I think they would be an easy club to link players with. Whatever the kind of truth, anyone might not want them.
It's like Chelsea
in the ownership situation.
Still Chelsea now, you just look, especially Chelsea now. You can just chuck the name in with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I suppose kind of as a side note and kind of a further extension of this, with Newcastle obviously dropping points, Man United lost to West Ham. what do you think with those teams? Do you think they're nailed on for top 4 still, or Liverpool have picked up a bit of form? Is it squeaky bum time a little bit? I mean, Man United have got favourable games. I said they've got 3 home games and 1 away game, and their away form has been pretty terrible. But you'd imagine I think they've got to win 2, draw 1, and they might, or win 3. I think win 3 out of 4, they'd make it. Newcastle's similar. What do we think? Have Liverpool left it a bit too late?
Yeah, I think just a tad late. You'd be really disappointed if you're Man United or Newcastle and you don't finish top 4. I think it would be a bottle job from this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. So I think at the start of April, Man United were 15 points clear of Liverpool, and Newcastle were 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
Just going around today. I mean, from that position, it would be a catastrophe, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's obviously the 2 things have coincided. Liverpool have won the last 6, and Newcastle have been okay. Man United have been very, very patchy. I think they've been patchy for a while now. I think that middle part of the season where they put together a good run and Rashford was obviously scoring for fun.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's held them above water, because I actually think since the Carabao Cup, both performances and results have been extremely bang average. So
De Gea.
shocking.
I'm just
Absolutely
looking
shocking.
at the top goal scorers here. Salah's got 19 goals.
It's
That
gone
is,
under the radar. Yeah.
It's totally gone under the radar. Having a bad season by his standards, but 19 goals, he'll probably hit 20 before the end of the season.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I think he scored in 8 home games in a row, they said on the commentary.
It's
He just
crazy.
broke a record, didn't he?
Yeah, 100 goals. I mean, he's had a very good year. You can't argue with it, because Liverpool haven't been good by their own standards.
No.
And to still put 20 goals on the board there or thereabouts is... I think if the season went on for another 5 games, I think Liverpool would come third. I think that's the momentum they have. And I know they've been pretty poor away from home, but I think they would definitely get in the top 4, but I just think they've left it a few games too late.
Yeah.
It felt like that second half at Anfield against Arsenal, against us, was... You saw something, and they've kind of built from that, and they've obviously won every game since, but it's just come too late. I think that middle part of the season, I think, is just what's killed them, unfortunately. So, left it too late. Moving on, speaking of probably leaving things too late, Chelsea finally got their first win under Frank Lampard, which...
Better late than never.
I was gutted. I mean, we were denied 007 by Mudryk getting that assist at Leicester, and now we've been denied 007 by Lampard winning his 7th game. I mean, they're just teasing us at this point. Any green shoots from this one, guys?
Young players playing alright.
Yeah. You know what? The longer this sort of whole thing, this season's gone on, the more I've been just depressed at the thought that I genuinely would have done a better job at running Chelsea at the moment. I'm not bigging myself up there. Mm-hmm. I'm putting Chelsea down by saying that. If I had the database of Football Manager for the past few years, and my own wits, I would have signed better players and signed better managers, whatever. It's actually just mad how badly it's gone. Lampard. I'm glad he finally got the win, because it was just getting ridiculous.
Yeah. That's not a wanted work. It's not a wanted record. Not for a club legend. It'd be good to see the back of him. But not because I want him to go, but because clearly he's not.
It hasn't worked.
No, it just doesn't.
I think it's the players are just so unmotivated.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'd love to know what his objectives were coming into the job, because if I was running the players, I would have been just set us up nicely for next season, or as best you can. Don't worry about this season so much. Just give minutes to the younger players. But it's only been in this more recent couple of games that he seems to have played more with youngsters and
Do you think that though is enforced by the fact that up until recently you had a two-legged tie against Real Madrid in the Champions League to contend with, and I think that
Yeah, but there's been a couple of things even after that we still. I don't know. It's just strange. I do get the thinking of like, you wanna try and get a bit of continuity going into those games against Madrid. And maybe
that's why I thought it was strange bringing him in just because of that alone. I thought that everything else made sense. Potter was on a bad run, I got it.
Yeah.
But at that point, when you got rid of him and brought Lampard in, for mine, it was essentially writing off the season. It was damage limitation.
Yeah.
And I just think that whatever you think of it, and as dysfunctional as it's been, you're in a quarter-final against Real Madrid. That isn't the sort of thing that you can just, on the spot, say, look... And I know you tried to win it, but it essentially felt like it didn't matter at that point. And I get it from his perspective. I think that his stock as a manager has fallen so low, given what went on at Everton and the way it obviously ended at Chelsea, and then they went on to win the Champions League a few months later. I think that for him, he needed a way to essentially get his stock back up. Because I think that his next job, and it hasn't worked at all. Like, it really hasn't. It's been a disaster.
Yeah.
I think you've got to understand from his perspective, I think that he needed to try and get a few results so that if you get through to the summer, and I don't think he would have got a job straight away, but it's, okay, I was at Chelsea, we won, half a dozen games, got them back on track, and that hasn't been what's happened. But I think that while you would look at it ideally and say he would have the interest of the club, best interest of the club, at mind, I think he needed to essentially look after himself first, which isn't a healthy situation to be in, I think, because his interests aren't the same as Chelsea's interests, because he's not going to be there beyond the end of the season.
I feel sorry for him that both times he's been appointed as Chelsea manager, it's been not down to his managerial skills, but down to the positive PR with the fans that would happen. Like the last time, it was it was a reaction from Sarri. It was like almost going the complete opposite, instead of this sort of proven tactician that's foreign. We're gonna go for a homegrown, up and coming manager. And that the fans love, and because the board, I remember the fans were really on the board's back about that.
Yeah,
and then
it was a transfer
just
as well, wasn't it?
Well, and it was brilliant. And then this time, I think they've just gone for the same sort of thing. And from what was said about they were surprised at the reaction from the fans and didn't realize how hostile it would be. I can imagine they were like, "Oh, let's get something in here just to turn that down a bit." And then he done another one of these panels or a conference, and in that he referenced again about the fans, just how sort of intimidating they were. I suppose he didn't say those words, but that's what he was sort of insinuating. And yeah, it's just also strange that the point was made as well. He's done a couple of these conferences. It's why doesn't he actually just do an interview in-house with Chelsea, and he would probably get the fans inside a lot more as well. With Todd Bowley.
Yeah, the whole thing's just been a complete mess. I genuinely, for you guys, how fixable is this? Because there is I'm watching Chelsea the other night against us. For a team that good on paper to perform that badly, there is an element of downing tools. No doubt. It's something you mentioned earlier, Fergal. So with the right manager, how quickly would you expect to see improvements next season, and kind of to what end is realistic?
If we have the right summer window, and when I say summer window, I feel like one or two players in and loads out is the perfect summer window for us. And if that was to happen, I could see us top 4 easily next season, especially when one game a season or 1 game a week, pretty much.
Season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If only this season was only 1 game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no.
Because Gary Neville said that on the overlap, and I just thought, like, it got me thinking, like, I suppose because Arsenal have been so good this season, I'm kind of looking down and thinking, well, Chelsea are an absolute mile off. But then when I look at, say, Man United in 4th, I don't think Chelsea are that much worse than them. For example, if they had a good summer window and got the right players in, as you say, and got the right manager, and this is all like projecting because ultimately these are things like we've not seen anything yet. We haven't seen any football under this new manager, so you just don't know. But if I think back to the start of last season, for example, and we were in a complete mess, and like you couldn't see where the project was actually heading, and then sort of suddenly, okay, we ended up finishing 5th, but there was a sustained improvement across the season. Now we're up to 2nd. Like things can improve quicker than they would appear like they will. So, yeah, I don't know. Like it's difficult maybe to share your optimism, but like I could see it. It's just something that obviously we haven't seen who you've signed yet. We don't even know who the manager's going to be. It looks like Pochettino.
Like we definitely need a striker. I feel like Chelsea have been unlucky with some of the results that were had, and then that sort of like the bad results has then led into a bad mood, and then it's all spiraled into this
circle, yeah.
we're now in. Like there's been so many contributing factors, but I do feel like when there was times when like probably deserved a result and then didn't get it, and a lot of that was down to not having a good striker in front of goal. So getting in a good striker or welcoming an old striker back is probably the options that we have. I saw we're getting Pochettino's apparently given his list in, and Martinez, Lukaku's partner at Inter Milan, is on there as a striker, which I don't know how I feel about it, because it feels like we're just missing a big proper Chelsea centre forward like we're used to. So I don't know about.
Well, surely it's surely that would be alongside Lukaku, wouldn't it, to appease him? That not be
Maybe.
that not be the move. I'm a lot sort of less optimistic for next year, mainly because I genuinely don't believe that Tuchel would have finished top 4 with his team. It just feels.
I think he would have. Yeah, I think he would have been 6th or so. Kind of where he was when he was sacked, really.
I think Tuchel would have been sacked at some point during the season.
Yeah.
I think their mistake was actually sacking them
right after a transfer window. It's crazy.
The fans just disagreed with it totally. But
Yeah.
I did think it was the right decision, but just at the wrong time. Like if they had let it go.
Yeah. You can argue that it would have improved
judged
magically.
Potter was being judged compared to a Champions League winning manager, whereas if they had let it go and Tuchel was in bad form, then he'd be
that's not
compared to Tuchel who was on a slide.
Yeah.
You know, whereas now like people completely forget what Chelsea were like under Tuchel in the last 6 months or so, and think that we were a great team to watch and we were winning all the time. When it was already on the slide.
Yeah.
We cut you off there, George. Sorry, you were saying you
No.
didn't share Fergal's optimism.
Yeah, no, I don't. Simply because of that reason, obviously, with the Tuchel reasoning, but also on top of that, I think this squad lacks so much identity. Maybe Pochettino can bring it in, but yes, there's talent. I think that's true. But then I'm also looking at players like Koulibaly. Thiago Silva's getting another year older. Surely at one point that does, he does age. Cucurella, I don't think looks up to standard. Again, these players can be transformed by a manager, but I'm really not convinced. And I don't think the midfield is balanced. I don't think we've got. I don't think we've got a striker. Obviously, that can be improved upon. Apart from Big Rom. But we'll see. But I'm not overly optimistic. And then, like you said, I think we need to shift on 5 to 10 players, which is pretty incredible.
It's been interesting hearing actually Big Sam talk about like what is needed for a turnaround in performance. And he was saying, like, he said something along the lines of he just wants every player to improve by 1%, and then you've got an 11% increase. It's like 1 or 2%, you know, and then you've got 20% increase all over the team and stuff like that. But one of the big things he was talking about is confidence, and he was all about confidence. And there's clips from his No Tippy Tappy podcast, which, you know, I'm glad he's in management, because, you know, that was fierce competition for us. So yeah, good job he's out of the podcasting game for a little bit. But he was talking about confidence, and like, and then like just how important results are. So I think you would see a massive, if you could just inject a dose of confidence into Chelsea and increase the morale. I do think you would see players like Cucurella, I think, would play a lot better. I think the Mudryk looks like he's lacking a bit of confidence. Probably he's got to get used to a lot of things. So players like that, I think, will once they're settled or whatever, they'll be fine. Cucurella, though, it's just annoying that we have like Ian Maddison, and then even if you want to think of Cucurella as like a left centre back, you're like, we've got Levi Colwill, Balashile, so we've got this 60 million player that don't really know where he fits in. But yeah, there's very few players at Chelsea that don't have the potential to be sold this summer. I would say as well. It's like the players that have been signed in the last year, and even some of them aren't exempt from being sold. Sterling was getting talked about today. I could see a deal for Koulibaly as well, potentially.
Definitely.
If like the right bid came in. So yeah, there's going to be a big turnover.
That's why, that's sort of to sort of finish a little bit on this, but that's my reasoning why I'd want Poch in as soon as possible. I know it doesn't really benefit him in terms of actual results and maybe that manager boost, but at the very least, and I think this is one of the biggest jobs, the very least he can sort through 33 people, find out, look at training sessions, find out what he wants and who he wants, speak to all of them. I think that personal connection is a really important factor as well. Who can you trust, and then make those decisions and just move on.
Apparently Lampard's going to be involved in the handover to him as well.
That makes sense, but then he's got to trust Lampard, like, you know.
I think Lampard, just to like, I mean, we were banging on about Chelsea, and even though a few podcasts ago we said we wouldn't, but I think Lampard's actually like player ID or talent ID is actually okay. Like, so the transfers he's had a big say in are the ones that have worked. Like he was big on going for Chilwell, even though the club weren't sure about spending 50 million on him, and he pushed for Thiago Silva and pushed for Edward Mendy. Obviously Thiago Silva isn't necessarily, you don't need to be a massive talent scout to know that Thiago Silva is good, but he was able to identify weaknesses and strengths, and then got in good signs as a result.
Maybe he could do the Ralph Rangnick job, equivalent at Chelsea.
Just be a roaming director of some sort.
Just give him the director title, that'll do. It doesn't really matter what.
Apparently I think they're looking to appoint a CEO, and so they've got the two directors of football, so one of them might move up to like the CEO or chairman or whatever the title is, and it's so that Bowley can take a step back and not have anything to do with the day-to-day running, which would be good. But maybe that's what he could do. You know, maybe get Redknapp in as an assistant. You know, he loves the deal. He could coach him through the business side of things.
Dealer. Yeah, CEOs. Sorry.
No, I like genuinely thinking about it. Like, he's obviously a smart man. It's well documented. I think he would be better at something like that than actual management. but for whatever reason, he's just determined to plug away at it. And I think he's just someone that needs to take a long break. Maybe his stock goes up from doing that, and you sort of do an Eddie Howe, where you take time out of the game and actually come back and you've learnt a few things about yourself and about how you want to set teams up. But I think it's not helping him kind of just lurching from job to job, because he just isn't seeming to kind of learn the lessons from previous shortcomings.
Yeah.
So that'd be all I'd say. But if there is a positive, lads, it is that you're out the relegation scrap officially. You're not going to go down. But it's still TBD who is. And a lot of interesting action this weekend. I'm just peering over my shoulder. Forest lead 3-1 against Southampton. Everton obviously beat Brighton 5-1 earlier. Where's this relegation scrap headed? I think what you've seen in recent weeks, and certainly with their result on Sunday, West Ham are taking themselves out of it. So it really does feel like now it's 3 from 5.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's ever changing, because it was only a couple of weeks ago that Leeds won and were out the bottom 3, and Leicester won and were out the bottom 3, and now they're both back in there with losses this weekend. Where do we see this going now? What do we think if you look at the points tally? If you look at the table, Nottingham Forest 33, Everton 32. What do we think is the magic number to get safety?
I think it's going to be low. I think 35 will. There'll be 2 teams that finish on probably the same points tally, and it'll probably be 35. I reckon, and even then, that's a stretch. Actually, I mean, you're looking 3 games left to go. They're not winning a lot of games, any of them.
That's been the thing, and that's why I feel like it's so fluid down there, where you win and you go a few places up, and then you. And it doesn't feel like that, and there's a reason for that. They're obviously down there because they don't win a lot of games, but it feels like if you win like Bournemouth have strung a decent run together, and suddenly they're out of it. They're on to 39 points and thinking about next season. It was similar with Crystal Palace and Wolves. They flirted with it, had a few good weeks, and you're out of the relegation battle. Now West Ham have done it, even though they lost 3 in a row, because they were able to win sort of 2 or 3 games before that, and then they beat Man United on Sunday. They're now out of it. So but the problem is the teams are running out of games. Like, it's difficult to string a 3-win streak together when there's only 2 games left. Like, you're going to struggle to do it then. Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at it, I think Leeds are in trouble because of their goal difference, and you could say the same about Forest, but they are on the most points of those teams down there. If I look with Everton and Forest, if they're able to win another game, that might just be enough. They're sort of around that 35, 36 point mark. I don't know what you think, Fergal, we're talking about the magic number for safety. Because obviously you tipped Everton and have had a decent little upturn since you said that. 4 points away from home. George has gone with 35.
Yeah. I think 35 makes a lot of sense. I think even... as we're recording this, Nottingham Forest are 3-1 up.
3-1 up.
At half time. I have a feeling that might be them safe.
No.
Just for that result.
No.
Their games are tough though. So they got Chelsea next. I know you guys will laugh. They got Arsenal. This is their last home game, and their away form's been poor. So they've won 33, and you're saying that, I mean, they might not get another point.
The other thing though, to be fair on that, like, there's some really tough games for Forest, Leeds, and Leicester. So Leeds is Newcastle, West Ham, Tottenham. And Leicester's Liverpool, Newcastle, West Ham. So realistically,
and they're both in the relegation zone as well. They both need points.
100%. I really do think it could be those 2, or Forest. And I know that's 3 of the 4 that would probably go down. I think Southampton lose this game, they're down. It's almost mathematical.
Away for a while, to be honest. Yeah. We tried to give them the kiss of life a few weeks ago, and they still didn't even accept that.
Want it.
They conspired to give us a point.
Yeah.
As well documented on this podcast, Arsenal and Chelsea have done their bit in trying to help Southampton this season. So, if only they were as good against the nominally crap teams.
I think that Southampton's problem is just that they're not playing enough big clubs, not enough for
They
the
can't play
big
Chelsea
six.
every
You know?
week.
Can't play Chelsea.
Chelsea every week. It'll be 114 points if they could play Chelsea every week.
Yeah,
Even City, they were beating City in the Carabao Cup as well. You know,
They beat City in the Carabao
yeah,
Cup.
they
They're
just
actually
need to play
better teams.
big clubs. That's what they're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks like they're down. So really, it's 2 from 4 at that point.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like, I think with Everton, if they're to get to 35, provided they don't get an absolute hammering off Man City, which they could because anyone could.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they've got a better goal difference than Leeds. Leicester have got the best goal difference of the bunch, but I think Leicester have potentially got the hardest games as well because they've got to play Liverpool, who have come into some form. They've got to go to St James's Park. Can't see them getting anything there. I think it becomes very tough for them. I think that result today, I really thought they might win today because Fulham are a team that really have nothing to play for. They're not going to get into Europe and they're also well clear of relegation. And I don't know, maybe you could argue that frees them up, but to be 4-0 and then 5-1 down in that game was seriously worrying. I thought the defending was terrible. And I'm not seeing again, we said it a few weeks ago with Javi Gracia at Leeds. Obviously, since he's lost his job, there wasn't really any kind of bounce there. And similar with Dean Smith, I've not seen anything that they've not got, certainly not improved substantially since he's come in. I've not seen anything.
Do you think it's
that great
because
from them.
both of the managers just sort of came in under the radar a bit? They feel like you need to have a bounce. You need to have a bit more song and dance about it.
Just making it all about himself, saying he's as
you
good as.
You can't get a manager that's just gonna sort of blend into the background of it all. Your new manager has to really stand out to get the bounce. We'll see if Big Sam he's made a bit a lot of noise coming into the Premier League.
You got off that when people were sort of debating it's a really clever tactic because he's made it all about himself, and I was like, I get that, but let me just give you some advice. Don't shake the hornet's nest before you play Man City.
Yeah.
It's just, and to be honest, I know it was only 2-1. I mean, that could have been anything that game, particularly the first half. I think that's as well as I've seen them play. And they did quite well. To be honest, to get out of there 2-1, it's, we're talking about goal difference. It's not the worst result in the world.
No.
It helps when Haaland's being so generous as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, he missed it.
And giving handing that penalty over as well, feeling charitable. But Leeds have got a hard get. That's the thing. I think Leeds and Leicester's fixtures are arguably the hardest. They've got the least winnable games on paper.
This is what makes me think that it could be the Forest if they win tonight, and the listeners will know if
they might not win another game. Those two sides down there.
What's that?
Sorry, I said they might not win another game. Leicester and Leeds.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Forest might actually be safe now.
It's just the difference. I think that is the thing, because it is the worst of everyone. So if those teams do win a game and Forest don't obviously win another one, then they could be in trouble. But do we think the current bottom three at this point? Then are we just sitting on the fence? Is anyone going to stick their neck on the line here and say something outlandish?
No, I think Forest are still going down. I'm going to back it. Why not?
I've been saying it as well. To be fair,
I like it. It just feels good. It feels right.
Because Fergal was keen to remind us that he did predict Everton to get to safety, but he did also predict them to get relegated at the start of the season. So I would say he's net neutral at this point. I'm certainly not giving him as much credit as he tried to come on here and tell us he deserves. But I think the one I actually think might stay up now is Everton. I just think you can't underrate the actual momentum of a result like that tonight at this point in the season. To go and win 5-1 against Brighton is some result, whatever way you look at it. And to be honest, I know Brighton kind of piled the pressure on in the second half, but they had their number. In that first half, they had so many of those counter-attacks. It was a really good tactical performance from them, and that might be what they need.
They're so funny as well. I always you always have to keep at this stage of the season. You always have to keep looking at the table because you have this PR table as well in your head, where the league goes Man City, Arsenal, Brighton because
no, you've not even got it right there. I saw people genuinely. I was just yesterday watching a video on whether Brighton play the best football in Europe, Man City included. So You know, I don't think Man City will be getting beat 5-1 off Everton anytime soon. Although I would appreciate that next weekend, to be fair.
Yeah.
But as I say, if those two teams can play exactly the same way next weekend, we've got Brighton, Man City, we've got Everton. Be most appreciated, lads. But yeah, I mean, Brighton, everyone's second team. I mean, what a terrible result that is for them.
Yeah.
They've still got to play another 5 games, and you look at the league table.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Evan Ferguson's back, and so yeah, I'd say they'll be fine.
It'd be alright. I suppose it'd be remiss of us not to quickly mention the Champions League. Obviously, a big game tomorrow. 2 legs: Man City, Real Madrid. What do we think here? Because I went big on the whole Liverpool thump Real Madrid in the Champions League final last year. They didn't. Their aura got them through it, as George predicted. What do we think this time? Do we think Man City learned the lessons from last year, where they missed a lot of chances, especially in the first leg? Are they a better side than they were last year?
I think they definitely are, and I think that Man City have probably learnt a bit more of the like get over the line sort of, just like, you know, if you're struggling in the game, now they can just go get De Bruyne on the ball and he'll get Haaland on the ball, and we can win it that way, as well as playing unbelievable football. So I feel like in the Champions League, in these last semi-final and final, it can come down to play like players individually, and as it has done with Real Madrid, like they've been a great team as well in the competition. But you know, it's Modric's outside of the boot pass.
It's the moments, yeah.
It's all the Courtois' performance in the final. It's stuff like that, and I feel like with Haaland, like, you just feed him the ball and he could do it himself. But yeah, but if anybody's gonna knock Man City, yeah, it is Real Madrid. I would expect Man City to beat them, but I'm certainly not gonna write Real Madrid off like I did last time.
It's a tough one.
You never can. Yeah, sorry, go on, George.
It's a really tough one. You never can with Real Madrid. I think it is City's year. I think it is their year. You look at the other side as well. If they get to the final, they really should win that game.
I think they'd be the heaviest favourite in a final that I can remember. Certainly, I think of other finals in recent years, I can't think of one where a team would be going in as, nominally on paper better than the other, as Man City would be.
I can't get over the AC Milan are this far. I haven't followed.
They just have Napoli's number though. I think as soon as that draw was made, and then I think they beat them 4-0 in the league, 10 days before the first leg. For whatever reason, they played them 4 times this year, beat them 3, drew 1. The Spurs tie, I thought they were pretty poor, and Spurs were even worse. That's just what it felt like to me, and I know that might be doing them a disservice, but I think had they played, and I know you would have seen it when Chelsea played them.
Well, this is going to say,
in those 2 games.
It was like probably our easiest performances to get home and away against any club this season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually must look it up. If we've done the double over any team this season apart from them, it can't be too many teams we've beaten home and away this season. So
it's a good shout actually.
It just shows you that I didn't even think about it. I'm repping.
Got the Milan shirt on. Yeah. You're sitting there in a Milan shirt, slagging them off. Where's your shame, man?
The only I think if they got if it's AC Milan that gets to the final, we're talking about individuals. They've got Rafael Leao, who you need him to have his best game he's ever had for AC Milan. And you need Giroud to be backing him up, it's the
goalkeeper to have a storm as well. I think that's the only thing. He didn't play against Chelsea, and he was good against Spurs in the second leg, and obviously he's a big player for them. But I struggle with it, and I struggle with Inter. But they were good. They've beaten 2 Portuguese teams, maybe had a slightly favourable run. I did think Benfica were going to beat them, but fair play. They were comfortably the better team across the 2 legs, and. Got to give it to them. On one occasion for a semi-final in Milan derby. I mean, that'll be quite something.
Oh yeah,
it'd be the better I would. Well, actually, both are actually like Real Madrid, Man City's got like just like two great teams going.
I think it could be disappointing. I think last year was so good, like across the two legs. I think it's difficult to live up to that, and I just think Man City will have learnt from that. I don't think they'll want it to be as kind of frenetic as it was. Where in the first leg they probably could have scored about 7 or 8 goals, and then the second leg was actually the game they wanted until Real Madrid equalised, and then it all just went a bit mad, and then they obviously conceded another one and had nothing.
I think the players would be better off for it. Like they're already like so experienced and so good, but I do think that'll just take them.
Learn the lessons.
They've learned the lessons,
but then again, they've had a lot of lessons in the Champions League. You think of all the defeats they've had in the last 5-6 years. You know, to varying degrees, have been extremely disappointing for them. You know, you think of going out to Spurs, going out to Lyon.
Our only hope is that Guardiola just does something strange again. But I think he's learnt his lesson.
I mean, you've already benefited from that. You've got a European Cup because he decided not to play a holding midfielder. So
played him 3 times in the latter end of that season. Not once did he play his strongest team. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he'd be so kind just to do that against us once, because we can't beat them for love nor money. Should be an excellent tie. But yeah, I think Man City. I think they're going to be very difficult to stop actually, and that goes for the league and it goes for the FA. I think they'll hammer Man United in the FA Cup. So they're looking pretty good for the treble. And then Pep can leave. He's done it all.
Yeah, I hope that'd be brilliant if Pep leaves. That'd be great. So maybe
they just need it, like, because you know how good the league would be if he left. I think Man City would still be very good, but like, would they be as good without it? Like, put it this way: would any manager this season have found this when they're sort of in that slump between sort of December and February? You think since then they've won all but one league game, which they drew, and they should have won about 8-0 at Forest. I don't think any other manager would have been able to kind of invoke and provoke the results and spirit he's channeled from that group. Whatever you think of the sort of riches and options he has at his disposal, it's been an incredible coaching job.
Yeah.
Like this is it. Like you can say he's been given everything, but like nobody comes up with the solutions he does to like his very small problems. But to reach the heights that he gets, he's just an absolute genius football pervert.
It's almost comical the way he does it though. You think about it, like, he's gone to this system where they play 4 centre backs, and he stumbled across it because he was playing Rico Lewis there, and then he started putting Bernardo Silva there. And it's almost like he kind of creates these problems for himself, and then he thrives off figuring it out and finding a way. But it is immensely frustrating. I wish he'd just carried on.
Delighted to see the back of Cancelo. Any other man would probably go like try and like work Cancelo in and be like, oh no, you're
he's gone like the exact
pop.
He's gone to the exact opposite sort of player. He's gone from sort of like a flair, like midfielder playing at fullback, to a centre back just stands there and defends for the whole game in Nathan Ake. You could not find 2 more dissimilar players than those two. And it's almost like he's done it as if to go, like, up yours, like I was right. And I mean, he's been proven to me, because Cancelo can't get a game for Bayern Munich, and they hammered them across the 2 legs. So difficult to argue with.
Before we move on from Man City as well, worth mentioning Haaland breaking the record as well. And like, he's incredible. And at the start of the season, like I said along the lines of the podcast, I thought it might take a bit of time for him to get up to speed with it all. More so, like, I had a feeling like Pep Guardiola mightn't like start him straight away, or like mightn't bend to his needs of the team, and it might be like just a bit of a mismatch, because it just didn't seem like a Guardiola sign at all. But like, thankfully Guardiola's for them. Thankfully, he's not been too stubborn in his ways, and has just changed this whole tactic to fit Haaland in, and they're reaping the rewards massively.
He's not only top goal scorer in the Premier League, he's also top goal scorer in the Champions League as well with 12. Like, the man, and he will finish top goal scorer because no one else is near him that's got any games left. He's an absolute machine. You know, to beat that record, to absolutely smash that record, and when the record was set with 40 40-something games
more
as well are just unbelievable. Yeah. You just think many people writing him off, Rory Jennings sort of being the most famous one, saying
you beat me to it.
Wouldn't score more than 15.
You didn't go Rory Jennings on us there, did you? With your whole, I predicted he might struggle initially, and Pat might.
Yeah, no, thankfully I wasn't stupid enough to put a number on it.
Sky Sports when you said that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just never gonna live that down.
No.
I mean, I remember making some, casual, not too dissimilar comment. Not saying he would get 15, but I thought, he's injury prone. Man City, they have such a defined way of playing, and it doesn't involve a centre forward and hasn't for a few years. I thought there could be teething issues, but he, I think he's taken to it like a duck to water, and they do just create so many chances, and they have pivoted this system to essentially he is the fulcrum of it all. Him and De Bruyne are aware, and the rest of the team facilitates that.
Yeah,
essentially.
even £100 million Grealish is just a facilitator.
He is, and the whole feel good story about him. I mean, I you probably need no encouragement, Fergal, to absolutely hammer the guy, but everyone says how well he's been playing, but his goal contributions is still pretty minimal for that side, and he essentially is just a workhorse. He gets up and down, stops people going the other way, and then he gets the ball and sticks his arse out and tries to attract runners to him so he can give it to De Bruyne and give it to Haaland. He does a system job in that team.
Yeah.
It's if only some other teams could be so fortunate to have £100 million player to do that. But
one of the other things that's so scary about Haaland is that you watch him and you're like, oh, there's so many other things he could do better.
Yeah.
He's got so much room to put. The amount of chances he missed there, I don't feel like his heading is amazing.
This hold-up play as well. That has got better.
Play can look awkward at times.
Yeah.
He's got all these things that are good.
This is why Pep needs to go, Fergal. We need some absolute.
Because if Pep has him for too long, he is just going to be incredible.
I wonder if he just turns him into a right winger though, Pep. Sit on the touchline.
He would. I'm honestly convinced if they were to do the treble, he would get bored and just try and win the league in the most unorthodox fashion possible.
Haaland at left wing back.
You'd Pedersen in midfield and start messing around with his team. Put Haaland on the right, turn him into a touchline winger. This guy, you can't underestimate the extent to which he has to be the smartest person in the room in his mind. So. Listen, I hope we can be the beneficiaries of that because it's.
I also thought he dealt with the whole Sam Allardyce thing just perfectly.
It's so pet.
Sam is just so great. One of the true greats of football. He was basically banging on saying it.
I can say this, entirely sincerely as an Arsenal fan. If he starts talking you up, then you're not on too much. When they they beat us 5-0, and albeit it's actually aged quite well because we've gone on to do quite well since then. But when he was just talking up Arteta when we've just lost 5-0 to them, it's mate, you don't even believe what you're saying. Give it a rest. You're the last person we want to be hearing this from. The guy is a basket case, but at the same time an absolute genius. Quickly before we go, guys, short king of the week. Now, I'd be impressed if you've got one off the top of your head because I genuinely had to do a little bit of research here. So, not to.
You go ahead with yours then if you know.
Okay, if you know what. I'll go with mine, and it literally I had to go through every single goal scorer for the weekend and find someone 5'9" or less. So I'll be impressed if you get one quickly. I've gone for Willian, 5'9", got a double today. Got a hard time off me when he was playing for Arsenal, so got to right a few wrongs there. He's having a very good season. I don't know what the hell happened when he was playing for us. He must have been on a bung because I genuinely can't believe I'm watching the same player. And if anything, he's got more reason to be worse because he's a year and a half older. But
I think he's just a sleeper agent. I think he was just.
It feels like it. Yeah, it really does feel like that.
Yeah.
So that's my nominee.
Yeah.
He just scored a really good goal as well. Really good goal. The second one. I know he took the penalty off Haaland. How tall is Gundogan?
No, he's over 6 foot.
He's over 6 foot?
Yeah.
What about Odegaard?
Gundogan's over 6 foot.
He's 5'10".
Why does Ilkay Gundogan look small? Does he? He's got aura of being small.
Because I remember, like, this is the thing. He scored multiple headers against us. I was like, how the hell is he scoring these? Like, he does not look tall at all. But yeah, he's definitely not under 5'9". It's 5'10".
The opposite to that is like Reece James. Reece James is I'm pretty sure he's 5'9".
And he looks
Well,
tall.
He's
like this really intimidating presence. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's sad. You know, there's not many nominees, George. You know, Gundogan. Yeah, he's 6. Oh no, he's 5'11". There you go. Well,
No,
still
6 foot. Yeah.
There you go. I've corrected myself. Are we crowning Willian then?
Yeah, we like
Give it to Willian. Give it to Willian. He's had a good season, and you know, Fulham are entirely inoffensive club, so we'll give him something. There you go. That's another episode in the books, boys. Thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always. And enjoy the rest of your bank holiday that's left, and hope everyone enjoys the episode, and we'll see you next weekend. Thank you very much.